Welcome to the cell, everybody. Cool conversations with the most amazing salespeople I can find. Everybody, welcome back to the what I call conversations with the coolest salespeople on the planet. Because I get to choose who's the coolest, that's my decision. So this week we have James Barker on. James, we just realized that, well, obviously we've never met, but how would you categorize LinkedIn friends in the world of friendships?
Yeah, it's weird. We haven't met really very often or connected outside of LinkedIn, but I think we're both very familiar with each other through that medium.
How did you, on my LinkedIn, mine says salesman, yours says the fintech sales guy. How did you come to be the fintech sales guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've spent 15 years in technology companies, predominantly kind of scale up, fast growth companies that have sold to financial services. And I really branded myself that way because when I left employment and went out on my own 3 years ago, almost to the day now, I what became really apparent to me is the way regulated organizations buy is so different, and I'd end up with these kind of tussles and arguments with other sales experts, over issues like the length of sales cycles, and I would have to kind of just say no. When you sell to a regulated organization, it is different, and so I built my brand around that.
Uh, I love this phrase. When you left employment, sounds like you went off and retired. You probably worked twice as hard.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's not a cushy job.
What spurred you to leave what we might call normal employment?
Yeah, I just got to the point where there was really kind of two key things. One, I had finished an assignment, and there was nothing really appealing to me out there. And fortunately, like I think if you work hard, if you're a successful salesperson, the financial rewards are significant. So I found myself in a position where I didn't have to take a job for the job's sake, and that was quite freeing. And I got to the point, I was just gone 40, where I wanted to experiment and try building a business myself rather than building businesses for other people, and to bring the experience that I'd accumulated over 15, 20 years and make that available to other people. So here I am. I don't think it came from a grand design to be the next McKinsey or or world domination. I just I think it's an incredible privilege to be able to experiment and just try new things, because otherwise we get stale.
Isn't it funny? You say the next McKinsey. Do you imagine Mr. McKinsey started like us? Just people who left employment and was like, oh, I wonder if people will pay to listen to me. And then 100 years
You know
later,
what? I have no idea what Mr. McKinsey thought, but whatever he was thinking, I'd like to believe that I'm the antithesis of that.
oh my God, you're crapping on McKinsey already and we haven't even started. Um, but so, look, we can just dive in. Look, your background, I remember you were at Mambu, and I don't know if I ever told you this. How long were you at Mambu for?
3 years.
Okay, I don't know if I ever told you this. We maybe once every 6 months we would get some because I ran Bamboo. Somebody would call us or said, "Hey, I'd like a meeting," and I would realize after 5 months they thought we were Mambu, right? And they landed at Bamboo, and I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm still going to sell them something." And we actually managed to convert a client who thought they were looking for banking, but they happened to be looking for banking and wealth. And I'm like, they're like, after like 10 minutes, he's like, "Wait, is this Mambu?"
Well, look, Ned, like all hell. If you manage to sell to a wrong number, then that's the reason why you're sitting in the big seat.
Well, I don't know if it's the big scene in it. Well, again, I'm like you. I finished startup and went into sales. But look, I suppose we both are pretty passionate about. Yeah, the word coaching gets a bit of crap at the moment. Teaching, coaching, helping startups, and we all have our strong views. I mean, you're pretty clear on LinkedIn. You have strong views about it. Our listeners are B2B startups, and I have my pretty strong views about what I hate to say they get wrong, but what is it that startups get wrong about sales? Because I think we could riff on this for ages.
I was going to say you might need to get comfy. I'm going to be careful not to take the bait and go into rant mode. So many things. I mean, I've got a perfect example from a conversation yesterday. I was sitting down with a business leader, and they asked me, what tools and AI stuff should we be buying to enable our salespeople? And my response was, we've got too much of that already. Like salespeople are drowning in tools, and actually, increasingly it's becoming something for them to hide behind, and as a result, they're not developing some of the really important fundamental skills, whether it's, the losing the fear to just pick up the phone and try and have a conversation because this is a contact sport, or developing their intuition to kind of read between the lines. AI is great at analyzing content, but it's not really there at picking up inflection and all those kind of the non-verbal communication that we do, and those are timeless skills that I think are getting a little bit lost, if I'm honest.
You said sales is a contact sport. Oh my God, I love that. I love that. People forget that. Like I did look on your LinkedIn. You started in the hard streets of like old school cold and banging on doors, right?
I did, yeah. I sold office supplies door to door, and you would walk into someone's office. I mean, it was a corporate stationer. I didn't have a bag of pencils that I was trying to ship, but fundamentally, it's the same thing. You walk into someone's office, and all eyes turn on you, and I think we lose sight of how valuable a life experience that is, because as salespeople, there's this odd dichotomy. You need to be really tuned into people's perception because we need to influence it. That's fundamentally our job. But if you let the fear of people's perception of you kind of control you, then you don't do the things, the hard yards that are really needed.
The fear of people's perceptions. I think I have some really strong thoughts on this. Just explain that, because I actually think, to me, that's one of the killer parts of sales where people get it wrong. What do you mean by the fear of, I mean, I understand the English on it,
Well,
but in a
no one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I really hope I'm cold called today. You are interrupting people in the middle of their day, and it's generally unwelcome. So you can have a successful or a failed outcome, but very, very rarely is someone waiting for you to call. And I think that's an odd thing to carry around as an individual, to expect scorn and frustration when you talk to people, and that can be quite limiting. And it's still something. I think it's something that you can get over. You grow thick skin and stop it bothering you. But you never lose that awareness of it. And I think it's something that you need to continue to test as you get more senior.
I tell people, let go of the nose, right? Like the person who says to you when you cold call them, if you cold call me, I'm like, oh my God, James, I don't want that, go away. Well, I'm not actually saying, James, I don't like you as a person. It's personal because I don't know you, right? What they're saying is wrong time, wrong place. Obviously, you need to get better at it. Great cold calling is a skill that people need. But to come back to your point, so if everyone's using AI like that guy yesterday, and we are less and less doing contact sport, is the sad reality that we are, as humans, losing the wonderful skill of sales, and it'll all just be AI bots like calling each other?
Yeah, two AIs talking to each other, buying nothing, basically evading each other. Yeah, I mean, and this is something that I dwell on and I think a lot, because there are some aspects of sales that will change inevitably,
Some,
and some that are timeless, and it's being tuned into those things enough that you can tell one from the other.
which are changing, which are not, do you think?
Well, I mean, I do think outreach is continually changing. I mean, the cold calling thing. There's two interesting forces that I think are in play. So the first one is the more noise, the more traffic there is in a channel, the more desensitized the buyers get to that channel. Yeah. So the interesting thing about cold calling is that because it's a lost art, there's actually a collapse in the number of outbound cold calls. So it has become more effective.
Ha.
But in parallel, there is another bigger trend, which is buyers are increasingly wanting to self-serve. So how do in the new future, how do you blend those two things together? Can you make sandboxes available online and your documentation transparent and videos of your demos, but still cold call to create awareness of that? So that's the future state that I'm seeing evolve.
And so when this, for example, this client yesterday talks to you, what else should they be doing? So you talked about the AI side of it. What else are you telling them that they should focus on to, in essence, like we all want, get more sales?
Yeah, well, I mean, in this particular case, I had trained a lot of I'd done a training course for
Yep.
a lot of their salespeople, and they were asking what the follow-on from that is, and I explained it this way. Training is imparts knowledge, like, and coaching converts that knowledge into the context of their day-to-day lives, the opportunities that they're working. And I think one of the biggest problems in businesses all over the world is that sales leaders are essentially reduced to gathering forecasts. Like, the only reason they speak to their salespeople is to ask them 5 times a day at the end of the quarter whether their forecast has changed in the last 7 minutes. And actually, the most important thing is that sales leaders need to be there to help develop those skills, to help salespeople read the terrain and see with a new set of eyes. So, my advice to them is very often the same advice that I give to any business, which is, invest in those fundamentals, invest in training, invest in coaching, invest in helping your salespeople become the best they can be, and automate the forecast. I mean, if there's one thing that AI is good for, it's automating all of that stuff. It's not, you shouldn't be using AI to automate outreach. You should be using AI to automate all of the busy admin work.
I was chatting to someone the other day. He's like, "Oh, I can't chat for a month." He's like, "One night." I said, "Oh, it's budgeting season." I'm like, "What the fuck, dude? Really? Sorry? Like, you're going to be budgeting for a month? You're a sales guy. What are you budgeting for?" He's like, "Oh, gotta forecast my targets." And I was like, "Go to your CRM, press the button. It knows the top of the funnel. It knows how many leads you've got." I said to him, "Tell you what, you show me your CRM, and I'll show you what you're going to get." You know what he said? "Oh, we don't really use the CRM." I'm like, "Here's your forecast. You're going to miss it because you don't have any of the tools." Isn't it wild that people are so worried about like the AI at the top end, and then you're right, a sales leader who says to a salesperson, "Hey, show me your forecast." I mean, shame on that sales leader. You should have given the dude the tools that knows what's happening, and you should be exactly say to the sales guy, "How do I help you? How do I make this better?" Isn't it wild that we're still going down that path?
Yeah, but you raised a really interesting cultural point, which is the all-consuming budgeting process. Which, I mean, I don't know the business that you were talking to, but I would wager they are probably a larger business, and it becomes this issue where, well, a forecast should be based on one thing: truth. What is the reality of your pipeline at that moment? But in large businesses, in listed businesses, it becomes deeply political. So the reason it goes through is, okay, what is the reality? Okay, and now how do we dress up the reality in order to be optically acceptable for the board, and then announced at the earnings calls? And I'll be honest, that is one of the main reasons why I avoid, or have throughout my career avoided working through those large businesses, because you can only serve one master, and you either pick optics or the truth. You can't have both, and it causes sales performance in those businesses to unwind so badly when the two are in conflict.
But surely AI could, I was going to say wheedle, I don't know if that's the right word. Surely AI could find the truth even in the best sales guys dressed up figures. They can look at the data. They know how many cold leads to get, how many warm leads to get, how many first meetings. They know the length of cycle. Surely the idea that humans could forecast what sales are, we could find if somebody's dressed up their pipeline, can't we?
You would think. I mean, we're talking kind of RevOps here, but one of the big problems that I've seen is, I would wager, if we took a sample of 100 businesses and sales vendors and looked at how they structure their opportunity stages in their CRM, that I would say 80 to 90% of those opportunity stages are geared around a sales process, not a buyer journey. Now, as a sales leader, the single biggest purpose that those opportunity stages play is not telling salespeople how to walk along a yellow brick road. It's providing a weighted forecast. And when that weighted forecast is generated based on the actions of the salesperson rather than where the buyer is, you're immediately inaccurate. So, I would, the traditional sales process is going to be you open the CRM and it's qualify opportunity, send proposal, those things, very buyer-centric. What relevance does my sending a proposal have to their likelihood to buy? Zero.
Isn't it? So somebody said this the other day, James. I love this phrase. We were chatting about pipeline, and he said, "Oh, I've got a simple. I don't think we can actually do this, but a hypothetical. If you showed the client where they were in your pipeline, would they be surprised?" Can you imagine if you showed all the buyers where salespeople have in their pipeline? The buyers.
Let's do that. Let's create a tool for that. I think we've just come across our billion-dollar idea. A SaaS tool that exposes to buyers where they are and asks them to validate it.
Holy shit, James. In real life, in real time, So, okay, hold on. Let's riff on this for a minute. And I'm going to actually...
Do we want to remove this from the edit?
But James, you know the truth, man. Ideas, who cares? It's execution.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, long ago I worked in finance, right? And I worked in equity trading. You understand, right? Equity trading. There's a company called LiquidNet. Do you know who LiquidNet are?
No.
So LiquidNet. So in finance, you have fund managers who decide what stocks to buy and sell, and then they tell the brokers to buy or sell that stock, right? But if they're buying a huge amount, so let's say they're buying $100 million of Google, they only tell the broker to buy 1 million because they say, if they tell them to buy 100 and put that on the market will collapse. So what LiquidNet did was, it said to all of the fund managers, hey, instead of showing it to everybody, we'll have an anonymous system behind, and we'll see if you, big fund manager, are a seller of Google and the other guy's a buyer without showing it to you. And if you are both wanting to do, we'll just connect it. And they're like, and we don't have to expose our book to anybody? No one really gets. Took a long while for people to be willing to show. They're not showing. It was amazing. Your idea, can you imagine the CRM was optically available to the buyer anonymously?
I'll have something. I'll be unlovable after this, whipping it up.
adding, we are getting off track. Adding to their, I'm not going to say claims, I'm not pouring shit on anybody, adding to their 200 million ARR in the first year? Is that the number you read? That's the number I read.
For what? Sorry.
Lovable, 200 million.
Oh, God, yeah. Mind-blowing business. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, so we've only been on 17 minutes, and we created a new business from that side. But it's an interest. I actually have another. Okay, let's just go here because I have another business idea. I'm going to tell it to you. You can tell me if it's stupid. I'll ask you a question first, and I can tell you the business idea. You help a lot of startups, and you talked about sales leaders. One of the sales leaders' job is to hire salespeople, which, as we know, is really hard because most salespeople interview well because they're good at selling. Do you help sales leader build sales teams? Because startups have to move from founder-led sales to scaling sales, and as we know, there's a lot of angst around this. Do I hire an expensive guy with a network, a junior guy? What tools do I give them? I don't need to tell you the problem.
Had a conversation just like that this week. Yeah.
How do you? What's the? I don't think there's one answer, but what's your best path answer?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of opinions on hiring. Maybe top two or three opinions. The first is make the interview process lean. Like there's no job in the world that requires 2 months and 7 interviews. Like two interviews if you're well organized. Like find the right person, get an offer to them. So that's the first thing I'd say.
Right,
the second thing I would say is no matter how good you are at interviewing, you've got to acknowledge that 30% of the time that you will get it wrong and just be prepared to undo what you've done. Like it's what Steve Jobs refers to as a two-way door. Like hiring people is not something that's impossible to undo. So just accept that, you're never going to get it right all the time, but be prepared to act when you do get it wrong. And the third thing is having hired hundreds of salespeople, I still believe the most effective way to do that is to use a second stage, which is a case presentation. Get them to do a role play, get them to, my favorite one is I give them a deck of 80 slides for the company we're at, intentionally way too many slides. And I ask them to present back our value proposition. And it's so good because it tests multiple things. It tests their ability to do research and kind of assimilate, information. Can they then take that information and then bring to the surface the most like salient or important messages, so they're not just waffling endlessly? And can they boil that presentation down into 5 slides and then tell me a story in 20 minutes? And if I play a bit of an arsehole buyer, can they handle objections? Like if I'm a little bit difficult, the amount of times I have seen someone interview really well in that kind of the traditional first stage and then completely fall apart in the second stage is very common. So it's not infallible, but it is the best way that I have found doing those 2 interview stages to get good people.
I love that. Make it quick, admit when you're wrong, and give them an actual test like that. Yeah, I love it. The 80-page pitch deck, which everybody wants to read, which really sells your product. 80 pages of features that no one cares about. How do you know when, apart from the numbers, how do you know when you've got it wrong? I get asked this a lot. You hire somebody, B2B takes a long time. You say, the two-way door, get them in, get them out. Is it quantifiable apart from the numbers? Okay, if they don't hit their numbers, but is it number of leads, or how do you know?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's performance indicators. There's probably 2. One, there's a cultural fit. So actually, regardless of their performance, are they an arsehole? Do they argue the toss and everything? Because there's a fine line between jousting, like the team getting together and jousting on ideas, having a good debate, and then there's the individual that's always got a reason why not, like the voice of doom. So I think regardless of performance, that is always a frustration for me as a leader. That will get someone out the door quite quickly. And the second thing is more of the leading indicators, because if you're in enterprise sales, if a sales process is, and it regularly can be, 12 months, then how do you want to make a decision ideally before then. You want to give them enough chance to prove that they've got what it takes, but you probably can't wait to the end of the sales cycle if you've got a 3 or 6 months probationary period. So for me, it's all about how do they prospect, what again, going back to it's a contact sport, what meetings do they have, what hustle are they showing to try and move things along on their own.
Oh my God, James, yeah, we could definitely chat all day. I was chatting to a VC and they're not employing me. They give me access to their startups. They have a lot. And they're like, well, we'll tell our startups they should maybe use you. I appreciate it. Here's what we want you to do for us. It's really interesting. They said, can you do DD on their sales? So they sent me their, forecasts and stuff. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? You can read forecasts. I want to see their CRM. I want to see the top of their pipeline. If they're telling you they're doing 5 million next year and they have 1 cold lead in their pipeline, I can tell you it's not happening. Show me how many meetings. Show me the pipeline. And so and the VC was literally, he's like, hold on, we've never done DD backwards. We only look at their forward-looking forecasts. I'm like, hold on, you're believing salespeople and their forecasts that they created to tell you to invest? So you're right, this metrics. Okay, the simple formula. 100 cold leads gets 20 warm leads, gets 10 first meetings, they get 5 second meetings, they gets 3 proposals, they gets 1 contract. I have this idea of volume and velocity. I always tell my startups 2 things: more volume, good quality, and more velocity, the speed of follow-up. And when you look at it, I was saying to the VC, I saw one startup the other day, and their forecasts weren't very high, but their metrics, the amount of outreach they were doing on LinkedIn, on email, I'm like, these guys are going to get it. These guys are going to figure out, isn't it? I don't know what you think if you see that, but I don't see a lot of DD around maybe from VCs or other things, or even from sales leaders, because in the end, I say to people, I don't care what your numbers are, your target, they are the end result. I want to see the effort you're putting in at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, conversion metrics are so important. And if I'm really honest, Ned, this is something that I came to relatively late in my career. It was an epiphany that was a little bit later. But absolutely, it will help you identify where in the process you're going wrong. Exactly as you said, the number of calls to demos, and there are industry benchmarks. Demo to opportunity should be 2 to 1. Opportunity to close revenue should be 4 to 1 or better. And it enables you to pinpoint exactly where you're falling short of industry benchmarks and then extrapolate the reason for that. So you cannot. It's a very old saying. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And it's absolutely true. And one of the things that I am very opinionated on, I believe salespeople should prospect. I think that's critical. But I'm actually harder on other parts of the business because I think, when I look at, I've worked for 3 unicorns, 2 of which I was actually key part of in achieving that. And the common denominator in all 3 of those businesses, they are great storytellers, they are good marketers. And I do believe that although salespeople need to take ownership of prospecting, if you give a salesperson a laptop and a phone and no support, the chances of success are very limited. So I think accountability for revenue should not just rest on salespeople. And one of the things that I think businesses need to do more is have a clear expectation of where their top of funnel, where those demos is probably the best metric, where are those coming from at the beginning of the year? So, hey, okay, we expect salespeople to generate 33%, we expect partners to generate 33%, and we expect marketing to generate 33% inbound. Because, and it doesn't need to be those percentages, but you need to have an expectation, because at the end of the year, if marketing partners have failed, you can't just expect sales to just pick up the slack. And I know someone in a business where he is responsible for 4 account executives, but he's not responsible for SDRs, he's not responsible for partners, he's not responsible for marketing, but he is 100% accountable for the end number. How does that work?
It's a little tricky. Okay, to push back a little, we both love LinkedIn, right? You and I, we spend our time. Somebody said to me the other day, "Where do you live?" And I made a joke. "Oh, I live on LinkedIn." That's all I do, right? I just hang out on LinkedIn and produce stuff. I said to a startup the other day, salespeople need to be responsible for their leads in the majority. And obviously marketing should produce. But I'm like, we both bang this drum about content. You have to a degree. Maybe we have different views on the degree. I said to salespeople, marketing leads are icing, because in this day and age, you can generate. Again, I'm talking B2B. We're both in the B2B Fintech. How many great lead generating sales content people are there? Right? There's not many, right?
No. The interesting statistic for you, I did a straw poll. 90% of salespeople are on LinkedIn and will connect with a prospect just before or just after their first meeting, but only 10% of them produce any content on their LinkedIn field. So what utility does LinkedIn have? It's essentially a business card or a channel that you can send someone an instant message. And the crazy thing about this, and I think every salesperson needs to know this, the LinkedIn algorithm, which is essentially the software that decides who gets shown what on LinkedIn, that will when you connect to someone for the first time, it will prioritize sending your content into that person's feed. So you connect with a prospect, you have a face-to-face meeting or something like that. They are going to check out your profile, they're going to see your content or not if there's none there. So you've got an incredible opportunity to actually drip credibility building content directly into their feed, or you're just a bad photo with a bad banner, and also there's another great bit that I heard from my LinkedIn coach a little while back, which is stop thinking of your profile as a CV, it's a landing page. That's a big mindset.
That's great. That is, oh my God. Hey, by the way, your banner, like you've thought way above me, your banner moves. Like you've got the Fintech sales guy, and now
I'm giving LinkedIn all of my money for the premium account. I've got to take.
Yeah, but James, like, you know what the young kids say? Oh, it's never been easier to win. The gym bros, never been easier to win. On LinkedIn, it's so true. Like, only 1% of people post. And I used to think, yeah, but most salespeople will post because they know, right? They know. And you're telling me 10%. I must admit, then I looked at yours, and it goes, the Fintech sales guy. And London, 31st of Jan, come to my whatever thing. I'm like, all right, this dude's got it, like smashing it, right? To be able to do that. So I understand why normal humans don't post. I had a phrase that I liked. Embarrassment is the cost of leads. People tell me they won't post because they're embarrassed. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So again, I don't want to crap on accountants. If you work in accounts, I get you don't want to tell everybody you work in accounts. I get it. But if you're in sales, literally your job is to get in front of people. And now, listening to your stat, which I'm sure is right, 9 out of 10 of them aren't willing to put themselves in front of people, and you work in sales. Is it because, James, they don't know, they're embarrassed, they haven't figured it out? What the hell?
It is. I mean, it's embarrassment, which again is really shocking because you can't. How can you be a salesperson and be crippled by other people's perception of you? So it's the same as walking. It's the same as knocking on someone's door or picking up the phone and cold calling. If that is what's standing between you and what you need to do, then you're doomed.
I mean, 100%. I mean, I'm going to say pretty much all of my leads from LinkedIn. I have a network because I'm old, I'm 58, I've been selling for 35 years, so I have a network and I can bang on doors, and I bang on the virtual door these days, right? But I can see it. Like when I comment more, when I post more, I start to get inbound. I'm almost at a stage, James, where it's like, wow, this is a self-fulfilling flywheel. I get like an inbound almost every day, at least like a decent inbound almost every day.
Yeah.
Now, remember when we were kids and we were told, hey, you work in sales and you get a fresh lead every day. You're like, what? Like, no, I have to go out and feed myself.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, and I mean, coming back to my point, which is around the importance of partners and marketing, those things are important. Who does them is not. Like, so there's the old saying, which is everyone's in sales. Well, I would argue in 2025, everyone is in marketing. Like, you have to be able to sell one to many. And I mean, absolutely. My personal experience, like, yes, I get inbound leads, but actually, I think the biggest impact of LinkedIn is an amplifier for my other network, my other channels. So I will often meet an executive and they will not know me from LinkedIn, but then they will quietly stalk me on LinkedIn. And I have had on multiple occasions CEOs sit down with me and go, right, James, I've just digested your last 6 months. I love this point. I love that point. I want to talk about that point. They sit down and build their agenda with me based on that. So they're so pre-warmed as a result of the content that I put out there.
It's as if they know you, right? Like the other day I was on a call with a guy who brought me along. He knew me to do sales training, and the other guy got on the call. I don't know him, and I wear these check shirts. I have my little thing with my running, I have my shirts, right, whatever. And he got on the call and he looked at me and went, "Oh, hold on, I know you. You're Ned, that running sales guy." I was like, "Oh, hi," and he turned to the other guy, and "Oh yeah, we can use this guy." I'm like, "Okay, stop selling now, Ned. Don't say another word."
Pre-approved.
I was pre-approved by my LinkedIn content. And let's face it, James, I'm not going to speak for you. It's not like we're Shakespeare, right? We're not like the world's most preeminent thought people and putting out deeply thoughtful content. I'm not, you know what I mean? We do it and we think about it. But in reality, it's not like, oh my God, we're the 2 best sales writers in the world. That just by the act of doing it and knowing our space, I love that phrase, actually, pre-approved, right? We almost, like you sat down with the CEO and he said, James, I've read your content and I'd like to discuss with you. I mean, I don't want to put pressure on you, but if you can't close that, dude, that's on you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, from the salespeople's perspective, why wouldn't you just invest that limited amount of time? And salespeople they're worried about creating negative perception, but there is something far more dangerous. And you know what the truth is? Some people will see your content and they will think this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You will be a turn off to some people. And I use the term "make yourself Marmite," yeah, because actually there's something far more dangerous than being a turn off is being beige. Beige is invisible, and that is far more dangerous to a salesperson than being offensive.
I have the phrase, I tell all my people, we want yeses or nos. We don't want maybes. Maybes will kill you. These things that go along. Talking about investing, James, I recently got my DJI little camera. This
Brilliant.
thing, man, it is. Like when I started using the camera, people are like, Ned, the quality of your content's gone up. I'm like, no, I spent $600 on a camera and I turned it on myself. Yet people are like, oh yeah, your content's improved. I'm like, well, yeah, I just spent $600 on a camera.
Yeah.
Like it's a new one. I want to ask you about product, about pricing for fintech. Before I do, I'm just going to give you that business idea for sales leaders. I have a friend who's built a music startup where aspiring musicians live stream their tracks to a producer in a 1 hour session. The producer gives 1 hour, like many artists get a few minutes to live stream, other people listen, and at the end the producer picks a new artist to work with and everyone gets to watch it. Obviously if the producer's somebody really big, everybody wants to be on. Music's being created in real time, producers are picking artists. How about live streaming sales interviews? Hey, I'm the head of sales at a big company. I'm having an hour. Best salespeople get to come in. You get 1 minute to pitch, like a pitch off. Other people get, and the way he commercializes it, if there's 1,000 people, let's say I'm head of Google sales, who want to pitch, you pay to bump the queue. So let's say I'm head of Google and James really wants to pitch me. You pay $50 to jump the queue, and but you also get 1,000 people listening to your pitch. What do you think? Live streaming?
I love that. Yeah, just bring the interview process in, and if you're really good, people are going to be. It's going to be like a Dragon's Den style thing. They're going to be fighting over hiring you.
There's other people out there. You get seen it. We live stream it on LinkedIn. There's like this sales off. Anyway, so
Yeah, I like it.
we better not create too many businesses in one go. A question. So I actually told somebody I was chatting to you and a fintech scaling, and they asked me this question to ask you: pricing, integration pricing, recurring pricing. When you're signing a big enterprise fintech, a big enterprise business as a smaller fintech, and the enterprise wants the lowest integration price, right? They want that as low as possible, and they beat you down on price. As a fintech, you want the logo, and you want to give a lower integration price, but that's dangerous, right? Because integration can take a long time. And then on the recurring price, they want to beat it down. What's your thoughts on trying to get the best possible, but not lose the deal pricing?
For implementation.
Well, for the whole deal, because there's implementation plus the recurring once it's implemented. Those two parts.
Well, be careful I don't give away too much of my play. But I mean, so on the implementation is a really important subject because a lot of the time, well, there's a couple of things. One, SaaS vendors in general want to avoid implementation because it doesn't carry very interesting multiples on their valuation. So they end up throwing it across to some offshore who's going to give the lowest day rate. Someone in deepest darkest nowhere for $8 a day, and I think first of all that's a terrible idea because then the chances of a failed project and a failed implementation and the backlash on the vendor for that reputational damage is terrible. So I think first of all vendors should implement their technology more and more to ensure the outcomes are delivered, not just the features and functions in a box. Because if a piece of software sits on a shelf, it does no good to no one. And I mean, the issue of pricing is a really complex one because you obviously want to optimize the value, and I think a lot of it comes down to bundling. And the metaphor that I use is how BMW and Audi sells their cars. Like you go on the BMW website, 5 Series starting from 35,000, yeah, and you're never ever going to walk away with the 5 Series for 35,000 because you add the large alloy wheels and the Harman Kardon stereo and all of the things you added, and it's probably twice the price by the end of it. And I think that's actually quite an effective way of selling. You need to figure out what's the minimum model that the market needs, and then all the functionals and non-functional extras you can bundle on the end. Particularly selling to financial services, they'll go, oh, actually we don't want 3 nines, we want 4 nines, or more resilient infrastructure, or audit rights, and all of those things. You can bolt those on at the end. So I think that's generally quite a good way to price. But also, but do be transparent about it, because I think people feel a little bit sore when you kind of lure them in with a low price. So be very clear. If you do have a base model that you're selling, be clear what it includes and what it doesn't very, very early on, so that they don't think they're getting the gold-plated service for the Aldi price.
Yeah, hold on, you don't get BMWs for Aldi price? What? That's what I thought we were selling. That's what I thought the good deal was. But it's a good point because there's eternal struggle, right? The enterprises seem to, or the legacy, the big businesses seem to want the best deal possible. But I actually wrote a little rant piece on this one time. I'm like, enterprises, why are you beating up a little fintech? You know that they're struggling. Like, why are you beating them up? You don't beat up Microsoft as much, oh, because they're bigger, or they deserve it. Come on, guys. Like, I always wonder what we can do to make, the big financial services firm understand that negotiating with a fintech is a zero-sum game. If you take money out of the little, fledgling fintech's pockets by getting the best deal, you surely just increases the chances of a bad outcome, aren't you?
Yeah, I did. I actually had this discussion in a panel at a fintech festival in London last week with one of the CIOs of a very large bank. I think the biggest that when a small fintech or a tech company is selling to a large incumbent business, it's actually less the pressure, the pricing pressure, and it's more the contractual journey. Like, so, you give them a 5-page simple document, to sign terms and conditions that is designed for your software, and they say, no, here's an 80-page master services agreement, and you spend 6 months arguing with their lawyer trying to retrofit their generic MSA onto your software stack. And that massively inflates the cost of sale. And I think there's one thing, banks used to go and spend millions of pounds with Oracle, and then technology fragmented and became smaller and more specialist and best of breed. And the technology is better as a result, but it means there are more vendors in the landscape. And I think one area where banks and financial services have abjectly failed to adapt is to adjust how big their procurement cycles are. And a perfect example of this, I was actually selling to a financial services business once, and we offered them I think it was a first year trial license for 40,000. And they came back and said, no, our head of procurement has rejected that. We need to do an RFI and then an RFP with a total of 5 vendors in each. And I said, how much is that going to cost you? And they said, oh, it's about 500 to 600,000. So you come back and you're saying you're going to spend 600,000 acquiring a piece of technology, in 6 months, acquiring a piece of technology you could buy for 40,000 and have live in 3 months. Explain that to me, please.
And what did they? But they can't explain it because it's not.
No. I mean, and unfortunately, the response is the same that you often get from large businesses, which is that's just the way we do it, which is the ultimate idiot's argument for idiocy.
Isn't it wild, right? Like, I always say it's not that they're bad people at the big, enterprises. They just want to go home and watch Netflix like we all do. Well, if you're a startup founder, you don't get to go home and watch Netflix. You got to work all day long. They just want to go home and do their thing, and that change. But it has to come. Like, we can't be doing RFI. I mean, for God's sake, in the world of AI, what do you mean an RFP? Please tell me when your company started. No, dude, you can go and look on the company house. Like, it's not. Please fill in these 500 questions. Like, it's the RFP. I mean, James, I am going to say the RFP has to die. What do you think?
Oh, I'm going to disagree. I mean, look, I think there is a lot of ignorance about what the real role that an RFP plays, and in financial services, it is fundamentally different than other verticals because a lot of salespeople will dismiss it as being purely a commercial exercise. But when you're regulated, if you're about to implement a piece of technology that's mission critical, and if it goes wrong, it lands you on the front page of the newspaper and the regulator's knocking on your door, you need to have an auditable process and you need to syndicate that decision. Because I've seen a number of people in my career, executives, hung out to dry because they buy a piece of technology and it goes wrong. So, I mean, it really is syndicating accountability. What I think, though, is that the role that the RFP plays needs to change drastically and become it needs to be made a lot more proportional to what you are buying. Like, I think at the moment, the default answer for any financial services business is everything that we buy has to go through an RFP. And I think the number of RFPs could easily be reduced by 50%.
And of the 50% that we keep, surely AI could fill in a lot of it, right? There's surely just a lot of data in there that we are putting into RFP proposals that are, there's no extra, surely a centralized AR, database of data. Hey, every fintech vendor, come along, put all your data in here when you started. Have you got a SOC 2? Have you got this? Have you got there? And then a financial institution could go to the central repository and go, okay, these 4 vendors meet 80% of our requirements. We got to figure out the last 20%, which is qualitative. Do we like them? Will they work? But yeah, the RFP is an unwieldy beast. I don't think I want to kill the RFP because I know we have to syndicate responsibility, but there has to be a better.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're not fun things for salespeople to do, but I think it's definitely important for us to separate the things that we hate doing, like cold calling, from the things that sometimes have value. And I mean, look, I one of the things that I actually train people on is making RFPs their competitive advantage. So rather than getting around the water cooler and bitching and moaning with other salespeople how much we hate RFPs, we can wish for the way it is, but there's the way it should be and there's the way it is. And actually, there are a number of things salespeople can do to really turn them into a competitive advantage. And here's kind of 2 examples. The first is get your CEO to send a video message as part of the submission. So the evaluating team knows that your CEO read and understood their requirement and cared enough about it to carve 10 minutes out of his day to say, you are important to us. Huge bonus points for that. And the second thing is, the executive summary. The amount of times I see an executive summary, which is a copy paste, it's the same in all 5 RFPs. And that is one of the key aspects where you really should be showcasing how much you know about their business as opposed to just regurgitating the top 5 benefits about your software stack. So I think RFP responses in general are done really, really badly. And I think if you're gonna do one, do it well.
I love that. The one I heard the other day, and I now pass it off as my own, which I should not, but I don't. Somebody said, when you've got an RFP, soft copy and send it, but also send it in a DHL envelope to the main person. Why? Because no one ever threw away a DHL envelope, ever in their life. They open it, they're like, oh, and you put a handwritten note in to say.
On really expensive paper, like
yes,
it should ooze quality.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of my competitors, when I had Bamboo, I won't name them, but people in the industry know who they were. You know what they used to do when we did a POC and then they would decide? These guys made a coffee table book of the experience with photos of people, how it went. They got like this beautiful book, and people would get a coffee of what essentially was a pretty boring experience, a POC, proof of concept. We did it all, and we would just send them the results. These guys were making coffee table books, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, they were definitely a better firm anyway, but I'm like, all right, somebody had a stroke of genius.
Mm-hmm. But the really important thing about this is when a vendor takes you, when a buyer takes you through an RFP process, there's 3 things that they are trying to figure out. Do you have the features and functions that they want to buy? Obviously, but most salespeople never get past that. The second thing is, can you deliver the outcome that they want? Most vendors don't talk about how they're going to deliver and ensure the outcome. And the third thing is, do they like and trust you? Yeah, because any big enterprise thing, they know that you're going to hit stormy waters at some point. And what they want to know is, who are they in the boat with? Like, when push comes to shove, are you the kind of vendor that goes, well, actually, if you refer to clause 23 on page 375 of our contract, it says I'm not liable? Or does everyone stay up till midnight to fix the problem? Like, and you need to find a way to convey those things in your response.
I love that. And that's why humans will always be the best at sales, because it's super hard to have AI convince somebody that you will be in the boat at midnight. James, we could sit and talk all day about this, but we are coming up on time. Where I have 2 questions to finish off. Where can people find you? Is everything on LinkedIn? Do you just?
I was going to say LinkedIn. I am the fintech sales guy. Search that. You should come straight to me.
We didn't even talk about personal. Well, we did a little bit. Salespeople branding themselves. Isn't it great that we can use a platform to brand ourselves, to tell people what we do. And I love the stuff you put out there, partly because, James, you're not beige on LinkedIn. Like you say your thing, man, and it's cool. Like, I like it. Like, it is, as you say, sales is a contact sport. It's not an easy thing. So, well, look, thank you for being on, man. I super appreciate it. It is wonderful. Thank you for everybody listening. You can find James on LinkedIn and he will show you the way. James, before we let you go, 2 questions that I have been asking guests since I started my podcasting. And they're just, first question, if you could live forever, would you?
No.
And why?
Oh, I remember seeing something on a science fiction show, and I'll paraphrase it as best you can. Something isn't beautiful because it lasts forever. Like, what makes us amazing is the fragility of our life. Although dying might be bloody scary, I think living forever would be worse.
Beautiful answer. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. In an imaginary world where you can only eat one food for the rest of your life without any health consequences either which way, but you only get to eat one food for the rest of your life, what is it and why?
Well, probably pizza, but you know what? That life might be very, very short if I lived, a cardiac arrest. Immortality would not be a problem that I'd need to face into now.
Refer to my first question. James doesn't want to live forever. Refer to my
Death by
second question.
pizza.
He's going to eat pizza. Well, James, thank you. We'll give you pizza forever in our theoretical world. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch up soon, okay?
Thanks, Ned. Cheers.
Thank you. Alrighty.